Hey, Pete, have you ever been fascinated by the allure of secret societies throughout history?
Are you kidding me right now, Andy? I live for this stuff. From the Freemasons to the Illuminati, I am obsessed with these clandestine groups. The Rosicrucians and their ancient wisdom, the Skull and Bones Society at Yale with its powerful alumni network. I'm drawn to them. There's something about how they offer this exclusive access to hidden knowledge. They totally capture my imagination. It's like they give this sense of belonging to something greater than oneself.
Wow, sounds like you're looking for one yourself.
Do you even need to ask? Where do I sign? How much blood do I have to give? Are there any required tattoos or brands involved? Is it my first or second born that they need?
Well, what if I told you that there's a secret society for film lovers right here at the Next Reel family of film podcasts, all proud members of the True Story FM network, and you don't have to give any blood or either of your kids?
You've got my attention, Andy. What can you tell me about this cinematic brotherhood?
When you become a member of the Next Reel family, you gain access to a treasure trove of exclusive content, early episode releases, and a community of passionate film enthusiasts who share your love for movies. It's like being initiated into a secret order where you're privy to the inner workings of our shows, including the Next Reel, the Film Board, Movies We Like, Sitting in the Dark, and CinemaScope.
But Andy, as a member, will I unlock a world of bonus content from extended conversations and behind-the-scenes insights to exclusive pre-show and post-show discussions that expand the conversations about the films we love?
Why, yes, the true power of this secret society lies in its community. As a member, you'll join an exclusive group within our Discord community where you can engage in clandestine conversations with other passionate film fans in our members-only channels.
But what about live recordings, Andy? The sacred rituals of any good cinematic order. Will these episodes be scheduled in advance so that members like me will know when to gather around the virtual pyre in real time via YouTube?
Ah, yes. Perhaps the greatest secret of all is that by becoming a member, you're not just investing in your own entertainment, you're also supporting the tireless work of our independent creators and helping to keep the magic of cinema alive and well. So if you're ready to join this elite group of film lovers and unlock the secrets of cinema, head over to truestory.fm/join. For just $5 a month or $55 a year, you will gain access to a world of exclusive content, engaging discussions, and a community that shares your passion for movies. Head to truestory.fm/join to sign up.
Andy, I can't wait for you to welcome me into the inner circle of the Next Reel family of film podcasts. I'll see you in the secret chambers. Now, when do I get my ring?
Well, we don't actually offer rings with your membership.
Tattoos or brands? When can I do that?
No tattoos.
Secret handshakes?
Tell you what, you and I can come up with our own secret handshake, okay?
No, I mean, at the very least.
Before we dive in, here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts.
Ever wonder where the devil got his horns?
How about those cloven hooves?
Or that pitchfork?
Wasn't he an angel?
No, he was a snake.
No, he's the great red dragon.
No, he's the beast.
He's the prince of this world.
Prince of darkness.
Well, he's the prince of dark.
Good morning, star lovelies. One of my names is Lester Ryan Clark.
And I sometimes go by Kynan Dias.
And we're the hosts of the brand new podcast, The Devil's Details. What comes to mind when I say Lucifer?
How about Satan?
What about just the devil? How did the big bad of the Western world end up with so many faces? Join us as we dig up, decipher, and deconstruct the devil's many forms throughout history.
Take a guided tour with Dante through the 9 circles of hell.
Or revisit Satan's angsty bad boy years in Paradise Lost.
Learn the ins and outs of a Faustian contract.
Easier than a 1099, but with a hell of a lot more fine print.
Slither on over to The Devil's Details on True Story FM and join us in the diabolic discussion.
Love and hisses. Mwah! Didn't Al Pacino play him in a movie?
Are you sure that wasn't Robert De
I could have
Niro?
sworn it was Tim Curry.
That was Elizabeth
Didn't
Hurley.
he go down to Georgia at some point?
Hey, psst. Hey, you see that Snickers over there? If no one's looking, you should just take it.
No! Don't listen to him, my son. That would be stealing, and stealing is a sin.
Sin Schmin, it's a friggin' Snickers bar. You deserve to have it. Sinning really satisfies you.
Repent, my child. Virtue is the only real snack worth savoring. For that candy bar is merely a gateway to nougat damnation. Has this ever happened to you?
Listening to the devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other, and you're not sure what to think?
Then we're here to help. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Tommy Metz III, and this season on All the Feelings, we're examining the 7 deadly sins.
You know, the fun ones.
And the 7 heavenly virtues.
Which are also a thing. Through personal stories, historical oddities, and way too much embarrassment, we take you on a thrilling journey through all the goods and the bads you hear about in church.
But without all that pesky church stuff. So come join us for All the Feelings Season 9, a sometimes funny podcast about being human. All the sins, all the virtues.
All in one place. Go to allthefeelings.fun to learn more, or subscribe to All the Feelings wherever you get your podcasts.
Game over.
This Mother's Day, give her something unforgettable, because she gave you everything. The warmth of a blanket in winter, the hand that held yours at the doctor's office, the quiet voice that told you, "They'll never take you from me again." At Everbloom Floral, we believe every mother deserves to feel honored, worshipped, obeyed. That's why we've curated a new line of arrangements from the garden that grows behind that locked door. Crimson Mercy, long-stemmed roses wrapped in silk and red twine with a handwritten apology note in your childhood handwriting. The Obedient Vine, a tangled collection of rare creeping ivy delivered in a bowl of milk, accompanied by a whisper you can't quite hear. Mother's Silence, one single black tulip, wrapped in gauze, unlabeled, left on the threshold of her front door. And for our signature gift set, the first and last gift, a custom arrangement of dried herbs and sacred teeth, sealed in beeswax and delivered by someone who remembers what you did. This year, forget the brunch. Show her you remember. Show her you're grateful. Show her you remember what happens when you forget the rules. Everbloom Floral, for the mother who gave you life and will one day take it back.
Welcome to Sitting in the Dark, the show where we light a single candle and stare directly into the emotional void of horror cinema. I'm Pete Wright, and tonight, in honor of Mother's Day month, we're celebrating the most devoted women in horror, the ones who gave us life and might just take it back if we forget to call. Joining me on this maternal descent into madness are 3 men who definitely remembered to send a card this year. My good friends and co-hosts Kyle Olson, Kynan Dias, and Tommy Metz III. Gentlemen, did any of your mothers keep a shrine in the crawl space, or was that just mine?
We weren't allowed in the crawl space.
Yeah.
We were told specifically not to go in there.
There were probably critters in there, no doubt.
Yeah. My mom was always jealous of my daddy issues.
Motherhood, you know, it's supposed to be sacred, right? It's a bond forged in blood and breast milk. And in horror, that bond warps. It suffocates, it fractures into something unrecognizable, something terrifying. And this episode, we have brought together 3 films that ask this simple and unsettling question. What if the most dangerous person in the house is mom? And I have to say, it is appropriate, I think, for me, given the last time I was this moved by a topic, it was my home invasion horror. Right. And I think the only thing that made it better is just knowing that mom was inside at the time. So here we are. We've got 3 movies. The movies I've got are Run, in which our mother's love becomes a cage. In Goodnight Mommy, the maternal bond is definitely called into question as I don't know. Is she mother? Is she not? Is someone wearing her face? Delightful. And in Mother, we're flung headfirst into the surreal sacrificial myth of the divine feminine. And this was, I'm telling you, a bone I threw in this list for Tom. So I can't wait to get to this movie. Very, very excited about it.
Okay. Let's see if
What
I can
unites
stay
these
awake
films
this
for
long.
me is control, right? It's control of the body, it's control of identity, it's of the women, the role that these women are expected to play as caregivers. And I think all three of these films trap us, like they did in Home Invasion, in domestic spaces, right? A house in the woods, a remote estate, a crumbling home that becomes a battleground shrine. Each of these films ratchets up tension, not necessarily through explicit external threats, but through relationships that are falling apart, intimate ones, claustrophobic ones, and they become ultimately fatal. So I open the floor to you. How do you feel about these movies and mother horror writ large?
I can't talk about writ large. I would want to go movie by movie, but the idea of mothers becoming horrific is the biggest obvious betrayal of anything feeling safe. That's not terror, that's horror. The
Yeah.
idea of that motherhood is supposed to be the safest thing in the world, and when it is perverted, what do you have left? Daddy's mean. Daddy wants you to like throw a ball better. Am I maybe talking about myself? We don't know. But either way, yeah, I like the idea of any time that motherness becomes horrific is very scary and fertile ground.
Leaning in on it with fertile ground, Tom. We all noted that.
Yeah.
Fertile ground. Nice play. Kynan.
Well, yeah, there the idea of there's some ideas that are very woo-woo, but really work for us in like literature. Like they're not psychological, they're not scientific, but the idea of like that we have this like archetype built into us of what a woman is supposed to be, what a wife is supposed to be, that Jung would talk about. And so when that's twisted on its head, then we, in that argument, all we could do was kind of be revulsed and be surprised by it and be scared by it, right? And this ultimate betrayal, like Tommy's talking about. And I think that goes even across horror. So many of the evil mothers in Hitchcock, for instance, who some of them aren't even evil, they're just like not very nice to the main character, and that's his like great wound. But like my favorite villain of all time, though, is in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and Nurse Ratched, and like we're expecting women to be nurturing, to be friendly, to be mother, right? Even if they're not literally your mother. Like, why, nurse? Why are you so mean to me?
So you're saying, like, if a woman is put in an authority figure,
right,
that becomes like a mother.
Right, yeah, and you're as wounded by that nurse than you would be if you were your actual mother. But now we have, when it's your real actual mother, it's even more shocking. And I like your picks, Pete, because sometimes here we have even the horror of being a mother, the motherhood thrust upon you, as opposed to just the children being afraid of mother being afraid of the children, or mother being afraid that they're not good enough as mother.
We sort of in our pre-show, I was talking a little bit about Psycho and stuff too, and how that's a thing, like the mother, like spoiler alert for a movie that's like 60 years old or whatever, but like the mother is dead and yet is a character in the movie. Like she's even though she's gone, she's still there, and it's this thing that is part of him and haunts him. Even her absence is almost a hole that gets filled by murder. And so there's a lot of mothers across the things. I was curious, Pete, what was it about these three that you sort of went to as in the realms of all these horrific or terrifying or scary or just bad moms? Why these three?
It's interesting. My original plan was to make mothers the villains, right? It's to pick movies where mothers themselves were the villains. And so I started with Run. And I started with Run because, honestly, I hadn't seen it. And I was interested in exploring that story. It was the most popular movie when it was released on Hulu during COVID. And I just had missed it. And so I was curious about it. And as I looked at it, these films, I think they ended up flowing together really nicely, because even though ultimately, as we'll discuss, the second film, Goodnight Mommy, doesn't necessarily make Mommy the villain, but it kind of sets you up to believe Mommy's the villain and gives you a healthy rug pull. And I really like that. And so that one it allows us to pivot and examine motherhood from two directions, right? From two vectors, where we're firmly in these kids' perspective. And mother, I think Jennifer Lawrence does some incredibly heavy lifting in a bonzo movie that does allow us to explore how motherhood it rips apart so many pieces of self. And this movie is allegorical at the wazoo, right? We'll talk about it. But I think there is this space where it sort of breathes life and takes life from the act of motherhood in a way that I think is interesting. And so I guess, does that answer the question? Why the trio?
It's a good place to start.
I think so too. So let's jump into Run. I'm not doing these in chronological order. I think I'm doing these maybe in order of number of people in the cast. I guess you could pick a rather arbitrary thing, but for me it's more thematic. And so we're starting with that's kind of more traditional, straight across the bow story. 17-year-old Chloe lives with her single mother, Diane, in a remote home. Chloe is homeschooled, uses a wheelchair, relies on her mother for everything: medication, meals, transportation, emotional support, the works. Internet, oh, boy, does she ever. There's a mismarked pill bottle that sparks suspicion in wee Chloe. She begins to uncover a terrifying truth that her mother is not just controlling, she's actively poisoning her daughter to keep her reliant on mother's care. It is a slow burn unraveling of lies, and it reveals ultimately Diane as a woman who kidnapped this girl when she lost her own baby out of the hospital. Let's start with, first of all, had you seen this movie? Who had seen the movie Run before? Is this new to everybody?
First time.
Outstanding. Nope. Then let's go around. What worked? And let's grind those axes. Kynan, you want to start?
Oh,
Tom actually raised his hand.
I do have.
He was very excited.
Tommy, oh God, he jumped over me through cyberspace. Go ahead, Tommy.
No,
please.
my axe is out. My axe is weirdly a good part. So, Kynan, go.
Okay. All right.
It's a compliment.
It's a backhanded compliment, maybe, that we have coming up. That's good, yeah. Oh, good. The axe I have is that when you were trying to research this movie, it keeps coming up as part of a trilogy, because this is part of the Searching trilogy by Anish Chaganty and Sevohanian. And I went down a rabbit hole that just means absolutely nothing for our film whatsoever. So I haven't seen those films, and then I read so much stuff about little Easter eggs here in this movie and links and stuff that don't actually mean anything, and I wasted quite a lot of time this week.
So sorry.
trying to find that. So it is no Alan Moore Easter egg thing where that's fun and like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, but that's fun. It was just
that's so
black hole.
funny. That was my understanding, that it was more of a, we'll just call it a spiritual sequel, or trilogy, right? They're just related because Anish Chaganty was a part of it.
Yeah, it's a trilogy.
But is that your only axe, Kynan?
Mostly. I think
right,
it's a pretty good movie. Yeah.
All right, Kyle.
It's a bad title.
Yeah. All right.
Run is just a bad title for this movie.
You're right. I agree. Now Kyle's got me on board.
I agree with that.
Yeah. I was like, when they got to and they do all the text on screen, and left the I'm like, oh. Okay. Yeah. I know it's otherwise a good title, but otherwise, no complaints.
Man, okay, Tom, your accomplice slam.
So my kind of axe to grind, which is actually a compliment, is we know really quickly where it's going. Like, we know that we know who the villain is, we know who the victim is immediately, like so quickly, and yet it is so incredibly well paced and edited, even though you know where what's happening and what's happening, it's so super intense. It is so intense and so exciting, even though you were way ahead of the movie. I think this is one of those chances. Unlike, spoiler alert, Goodbye Mommy, where the film knows exactly where we are with it and lets us go. I think Goodbye Mommy, which we'll get to, has a enormous axe to grind. But this movie is beautifully well paced and edited and directed. The performances are outstanding. I really loved this movie. I'm so glad that you put it on my list because I never would have seen this movie. I would have assumed this would have been like a doesn't it seem like a Hallmark movie?
Yeah.
Or like a Lifetime movie of like, who's poisoning my daughter or whatever. It's exceptionally well made. And I was really excited by all that.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear it. I think I lean in on yours, Tom, in terms of an axe to grind, besides the aforementioned title. I get it. I think it is. You're right. It is there. It's full of predictable plot beats. Totally get it. And I think the third act is a bit overblown, right? You might. Is that? Is that gentle? And while I think that Diane, Sarah Paulson, just acts the hell out of this movie as mom. I think she really does. Also, she's almost more of an archetype than a person, and so I kind of find her a little bit thin. I think Kiera Allen's casting was fantastic. She's also a woman who uses a wheelchair and in real life, and even as I found myself, I didn't know that, and I found myself wondering, trying to watch the movie to see where it felt like she was a fully able-bodied actor, and they were just playing tricks on me. And I couldn't figure it out. I could never really figure it out. And to the movie's credit and to her credit, what a great performance. And knowing everything I know about her, wow, what a terrific. She's just fantastic.
Yeah, I can't say enough fantastic things about her. Like, she carries this movie. I mean, Sarah Paulson is fantastic, but like, she carries this whole movie. And one thing I love about it is that even when we talked about in the previous ones, she's so smart and she doesn't make any mistakes. That's what I mean, like, all the way through. It's like everything she does, you're like, what a great idea. Oh, that's so good. Like, she doesn't always succeed, but you never go, oh, what are you doing? That's crazy. And even like when she's doing all this stuff on the roof, like, I'm like, I don't know what she was doing, but she planned it out. Like, she had all this stuff. And I'm like, why do you need all this? What exactly are you doing? But she knew exactly what she was doing. She was trying to stay on step of her mom, even though she was at a disadvantage in every single way. But every single time she made a choice, I was like, I understand exactly where you are.
And it was so exciting. She was ahead of us. We are in a POV situation, but she was smarter than us in situations. That is a really risky thing to do, but a thrilling thing to do right. For where we're like, you're our only audience surrogate, and yet what are you doing? And it was so exciting. And also to your point of being smart, I desperately loved Help. People not just being like, oh, you're just a little girl and whatever. Like that mailman guy.
Yes,
does
that was riveting.
everything right.
Yeah.
Except when he doesn't expect like a needle in the neck. Like, he's how exciting is that to feel in a movie like this, when the movies are usually just so filled with dumbasses.
Yes.
It's so great. And also I want to love the amount of time that they give to the character of Sarah Paulson, the mother.
Yeah.
I mean, she's a monster. She is literally a monster, but to give her times to say her daughter to say, "You poisoned me," and her to say, "I protected you."
Yeah.
She believes it. She believes it. Like, what a, ugh. I mean, it's just any kind of Munchausen proxy situation, if done correctly, is an absolute tragedy, Shakespearean tragedy. And so I loved it.
Well, and I mean, you already said it. One of the things that works so well about this movie is that Chloe doesn't make any mistakes, right, Kyle? That she doesn't make, but neither does Diane. Like this becomes a battle of wits. Diane is way ahead of her. She knows all the ways she's entrapped her daughter already. She's
So much
practically a
shades of
pharmacist.
misery. It's giving so much misery.
Well,
misery.
to the point where she's on the phone with the pharmacist whose name is Kathy Bates.
Oh,
right.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Mrs.
Oh, I
Bates.
didn't catch that. So it was
She
a
calls her
fun-
Mrs. Bates. Diane calls
Oh,
her
I thought I
Kathy.
was
You're
being
supposed
clever.
to.
That's great.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that works so well. And I think the horror of this movie, you asked sort of why does this belong in this category, right? It's maternal control as imprisonment. And we exist in the time when Chloe realizes that she is being entrapped. It starts where she's comfortable with this world and it ends with her uncomfortable. The movie picked just the right place in time to give us this movie, and I think that is its own level of expertise. So many of these movies, I wish I could see the movie that happened just before this or just after this. This movie just nails it. It's bright and tidy and welcoming, and I find that horribly unsettling. Tom?
And then the ending.
Well, we haven't let Kynan talk yet.
Wait,
yes.
sorry.
So before we
we're
jump to the end.
confusing here.
Let me push it away again.
No, unless I like what you all are saying. No, I think to speak to both all of your points, like the tragedy of Diane is that she raised Chloe so well, right? That she created this, we're talking about the home as this, if it's the evil mother, the twisted version of the home or the inverted version of the home and safety. But she's made this house where Chloe does have agency and she can go around and she has a little science lab in her bedroom, and Chloe's life is really great because of Diane to a large extent, right? Like she raises Chloe to at the same time that she's poisoning her to give her disabilities she wouldn't otherwise have, she's raising her to be a proud out disabled person, right? And to live in the world, and everyone knows her in the town, and she's smart enough to navigate that. And we see her in the pharmacy line, like going like, "Oh, hey everybody, like you all know me, I'm in a wheelchair, let me up to the front," and like navigate both of those worlds. And then Diane just hasn't, as much as you say like Diane is ahead of her, Diane has not really thought about the ramifications of losing her child to college, right? And so it's the exact right place to catch up with her, where all the other parents at the beginning are like, "Oh God, what are we going to do? What are we going to do?" And Diane is almost in this this state of like such great denial that her daughter will go out in the world and discover this, that she's just so not worried about her leaving it all.
I think that's one of the great observations too, that one of the things that motivates Diane, like motivates the mother's love, is that love is about Diane's needs and not Chloe's, right? And that's a massive subversion of the relationship as it should be, as we might know it otherwise.
And right from the start, we find out she has a life outside of it where Chloe doesn't. Chloe just has her mother, but she's out in town, like everybody knows her.
Well, you mentioned Nurse Ratched, right? The whole, this is a movie about the tyranny of care, right? When the caregiver goes too far and becomes the monster. And I think that's pretty great. But you bring up the end, and I think we need to talk about that central question: who's the victim now, right? What'd you think about that particular twist? Yeah,
it's kind of like presaged by basically the way that Chloe is able to get out is to recognize that Diane needs her more than she needs Diane, and to try to kill herself and, do a semi-sincere suicide attempt, I think, right? Of like this is either going to kill me or it's going to get me in the hospital, and we'll see. And then that is the end of Diane's world, right? Because she has to ask other people in and let Chloe out, which I really liked. And that satisfaction that Chloe has of like, well, we're going to do this. I'm going to eat some poison that you just keep around, and good luck, Mom. On the other side, see you on the other side.
Well, it's the destruction of the family.
Mm-hmm.
That a lot of the film is about family is the only thing that can save you. And the only thing that can save you if the family is corrupted is the destruction of the family.
Yeah, she poisons herself because she's been poisoned.
Right.
I don't have a bigger problem. I even read some of the reviews and people were like, ugh. I was like, but it gets really pulpy at the end, which I didn't have a problem with. But like at that point, everything was so escalated that you had to have an escalator. Like it was so big, you had to have something that like you had to, because if just like them sitting down with child services, that's not really an ending for this kind of movie.
Fun.
When you've seen her struggle and stuff too, to actually have her, stand and reject her mother, in a way, and then flip the, so that now their roles are entirely reversed by the time you get to the flashback.
I thought it was outstanding. So dark, so rough.
Yeah.
But like the fact that they've already been like so much pipe have been laid with like, make sure that your pills are taken, that your mouth is open, that she's doing that to her mother. I mean, I couldn't.
Chilling.
I stood up and cheered. I did, and not in a way that is like a clear like, hooray, world is being, like good is being done, but still, it's so much better than when I felt like she was just talking to her mother, her monster of a mother, and just being like, here's where I am, here's where my kids are.
All is forgiven. I'm happy. I understand what you did for me.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I guess this is where the film is ending.
There's a line in one of the later Star Wars movies where Yoda and Luke are sitting by the Jedi tree, and Yoda says, "We are who they grow beyond." And that line really sticks with me, particularly with this movie. The reason Chloe has the capacity to do those things to her mother is because her mother raised her with that skill. And that bit of turnabout I think is absolutely pitch perfect for the movie that we got. And I'm on board with it too. I thought it was a wonderful coda to this movie. So
the most heartbreaking line in that whole thing was, "Could I walk?" And I was like, "Oh!" And the look on her face. Man. Oof.
Yeah. Goodnight Mommy, 2014, directed by Veronica Franz and Severin Fiala. This is the original Goodnight Mommy. It was remade, as most foreign horror films are remade. And the remake is terrible. And I think it sharpened, it shaves off a lot of the edges that are of any interest to this movie. Now, movie takes place, we're in Austria, the Austrian countryside, very austere. We have twin brothers, Elias and Lucas. They live with their mother, and she is just returning from a facial surgery as we pick up the film. Her head is wrapped in gauze. Her personality is very different than what they know. She's very distant. They have memories of her being somebody who once sang to them and now just wants silence and darkness and isolation. And so the boys, because boys will be boys, they suspect that the woman has been replaced by someone else. And their solution, boys will be boys, is to kidnap and torture her and glue her mouth shut and eventually set her on fire. There's a lot more going on in
We're
this movie. There's a lot more going on in this movie, which I'm sure will come out of this discussion. But first, I have to open the floor to the axes, which I think Kyle began grinding before we started recording. Kyle?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting with these movies that where they strike you and where they take you back. You know, I remember being a kid and running around and being outside and playing with my friends and running around the rain and playing in the abattoir and playing with my cockroaches and putting on my mother's face. I mean, you know, just like things everyone can relate to. I guess my problem is, and I think, and it'll probably roll into the next one too, is when I don't like when a movie doesn't tell me what is and isn't really happening. So, because at a certain point,
ambiguity.
yeah, at some point it just numbs me because it's sort of like, okay, did that happen? Okay, was that real? And so that was where I was so with it, and then at a certain point, stuff started to happen that wasn't really happening, and then I had to every single scene I had to go, was that real? Did that happen? Was that real? Did that happen? And I just sort of lost any of the momentum of like what was really going on because I started not I didn't feel like I trusted the movie anymore. So like about halfway through I was like, okay, and I just like ground out the last 45 minutes. I was like, sure. I was just numb by that point. So yeah, it
significant
whatever
act.
Yeah, whatever spell they were casting, it did not work on me.
Fair enough. Kynan?
No, I have no problems with this movie whatsoever. Really, really dig it.
Was this new to any of you?
I knew about this the remake. I had heard about that and read a synopsis of it just in my own horror research and found out it had been based on something. And then this showed up. I was like, oh, this is the movie it was based
on. This is the second time I've watched this movie. I haven't watched the Naomi Watts movie, and I do have a huge axe to grind.
Okay.
I do believe that the film is beautifully shot. I'm desperately in love with both of those boys. And I think they're beautiful, and I love how it's filmed. And like the second time, like the first time, it was just, unfortunately for me, and I desperately don't want to sound like a pretentious person, but it was so obvious.
Yeah.
So early that one of the twins died.
Yeah. For me, it was when the mother went up to the top bunk and there was nobody there. Like she was looking around or whatever. Sure. I was like, oh, and then I knew exactly how everything, the rest of it was going to go.
There's
like,
only one toothbrush. She only ever answers Lucas, or the other one. There's no physical contact. Like, it's just so. Granted, I go into movies like this, horror movies, especially when you see two twin boys walk in and disappear into a cave, and one of them says, Lucas, and then the title card comes up. It's like, well, okay, one of them is clearly dead. Like, it was
okay.
It's just too much of it. Was so clear of, I mean, when they're playing the guessing game, she doesn't respond. When Lucas says she likes animals, like she can't hear him, and she has two kids, doesn't help as a clue. Like, you have two kids, doesn't help as a clue. Like, it's just, unfortunately for me, this is a Sixth Sense with an already blown out secret, which sucks.
That's too bad. Yeah, that's too bad. I'm with Kynan. This was the second time I watched it. We actually did it for the show before, and I did not like it the first time we did it, and I was entranced by it this time. I actually found it much more fun to watch and try to put it together, and see all of the things that you know that the directors were doing, that to you read as obvious, and I just liked the puzzle of it, and I think it worked. I think if I were to have any axes, the first half is wicked slow, right? It is glacially paced, and I still love it because, to your point, it's beautifully shot. Like, I like the environment, I think, is really lovely. I think when we turn to why it's here, there's something about the horror of misrecognition of motherhood, right? Of mother, that these kids, between them and their mother, something has broken so fundamentally that the only way they feel like they could recognize her is with her, had she come back with her face visible, right? That was a thing that put up a wall between them that the kid could never get past. And from there, it was just motivated by his grief, and the grief that caused him to manifest his twin, back to his partnership, back to life.
I had the benefit of this being ruined for me by some BuzzFeed article when I didn't want it to be ruined. Just click on something and it said, and it gave it away. I was like, I might see that movie eventually. So for me watching it, it was both scary and also incredibly sad. Like an incredibly sad movie of loss, and then it gets into them, a mother and child misunderstanding each other and having no place to go except to destroy each other, as Tommy had said about Run. So yeah, for me, it's like beautiful, elegiac, and then also just horrifying.
Yeah, and it plays on maternal identity in, I think, an interesting way. Like, is mother ever allowed to be sad or hurt or depressed? Is that something that's ever allowed in front of her children? And
that's interesting, because
I was thinking, it's like look at the kid that she's having. Like, of course she's exhausted. Of course she's tired. Of course she's not at her best. She's having to live with that kid. Like, of course she's not like, I'm not going to be happy and cheery and stuff too, because like he's putting cockroaches on my face. Like, why should I be motherly to this little monster?
And the other side of it too is that this is a child. Like, we look at this child and you think, well, there's a young boy, but look at the agency that child was able to muster. Look at the strength and the ingenuity, for lack of a better word, to actually manifest terror on this adult. And I think that's another betrayal. That's like the bad seed sort of angle of this movie, which I think is really interesting to watch as they deteriorate together, right? And it's super sad. So I'm with you, Kynan. Like, I feel like the movie succeeds in making me feel sad, even as sympathy is misdirected across the arc of the movie. And I think that works really, really well.
I mean, this is a deeply uncomfortable movie to watch. I hate watching this movie. I watched it twice.
Wow.
I really do hate it. Tommy, there's bugs in mouths. I actually texted Pete in saying I was watching this movie and planning my dinner, and then a cockroach went into someone's mouth, and now I'm planning tomorrow night's dinner because I cannot eat.
Yes, I watched the display fingers on many of those.
Yeah, the amount of the Skinamarink fingers. Yeah, the amount of torture. Like, this is an interesting choice for Mother, because Mother is more of a victim in this movie than anyone else. They're all messed up. Mother is definitely in this film victim of potentially letting the psychosis of the living child in putting out their outfits, putting out their lunches. It's clear that she didn't work with him to deal with the absolute horror of whatever happened with his twin.
Right.
But is that worth what she went through?
Yeah.
I mean,
Was there ever
clear.
enough love that she could give to this kid that could have
Right.
brought him back? Like,
I mean, it's there's so much to say about the idea of both of those one real, one not twins saying, "Can you see what he's doing?" She can't. And so they light her on fire. Is that really the mother's problem? I don't know where to do it.
I think it's the mother's problem.
It is
yeah,
once
yeah.
she's on fire, it's the problem.
No,
once
of
it's on
course,
fire.
but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Of like fault.
Yeah. But this is this is a 10-year-old assigning fault to his mother, right? I mean, and a 10-year-old who's lost their twin, assigning fault to the mother, and it's so awful. Yeah, it's awful. It is awful, Tommy. So, but it's awful. Like he
I hate this movie and I love it very much. Like I'm really glad to have seen it, and I really hate having seen it. Is that that's okay to say?
That's okay.
totally. That's horror.
It's a very uncomfortable watch.
There's a thread through all of these that are about gaslighting, which is, I think, very common in a lot of like female-centered horror movies about like who's in control of reality, right? And there's a little bit of it going on in both directions in this movie where, okay, you're the mother and this is a 10-year-old child and mother gets to tell you things and mother gets to say like, hey, everything's okay, right? Like everything's fine. And, at a certain point, she had been apparently like, okay, yeah, sure, I could hear Lucas. You're right. I could hear Lucas and he's there and everything is fine and Lucas didn't die. And that's a form of gaslighting that she apparently had been using to smooth things over, maybe help her son. And now it's happening in reverse to her and she's feeling the repercussions of that. And there's like no way for her to get out of that. Near the end, when she's in the final torture scene, she's saying, okay, let's go back. I'll go back and pretend. And for Elias, it's like, well, no, it wasn't pretend. Real mom knew it wasn't pretend. Yeah. It's the magic of mom. And there's nothing you could do to convince him otherwise of it. And
Got it.
Yeah.
It's too late. It's too late.
And it involves like one of her quotes. It was all a bit much. The accident, the separation.
Right.
Yeah.
All of her things were talking about like it was all too much, too much.
And she wanted to become a new version herself, right? And okay, so it's this great. I get to be a new version of myself. I'm on TV all the time. People see me in a certain way, and I don't want to be the divorced mother who lost a child anymore. I want to be somebody else. And I come home expecting you to be excited for me, and instead it's just like, well, there's a clear demarcation line where like, well, that was before, this is after, and the child just can't deal with that, right? And every problem he has with her is now about this one thing that ultimately it might have been like the first selfish thing she had done for herself, right? And he's like, we can't have that around here. We don't do that here.
And that we are that Elias is able to say without saying it, but that relationship is able to sever the sort of biological certainty of mother and son from the relational role of mother and son, and say, you're clearly not my mother, and I'm no longer accepting you as that role. And it is interesting that I don't know if you caught this. For me, it just read very much like Funny Games. A very similar thing. And only after watching it, researching it today, did I realize that Veronica France and Severin Fiala were deeply influenced by Michael Haneke, particularly Funny Games and The White Ribbon. So I totally get that, right? Like that makes sense to me, this sort of violation of space and violation of body.
No, a violation of space, violation of body, and a nihilism is what I was trying to say of that any basic idea. I mean, what is the happy ending in Goodnight Mommy is they all meet in the cornfield. But it's
they're all gone.
It's a bunch of dead people meeting.
Yeah.
Or one real person, but in his psychosis dealing with all the meaning with that. No, there's
is that where you all landed on this? That what's the vote? It is an ambiguous ending. Did Elias live?
I think by definition.
Yeah, I think he got what he wanted. Yeah, I think he's out there. Yeah. He's having himself a good time.
If he's been able to manifest his brother this a long time, it makes all the sense that he would manifest his original mother also. And his mother and brother and him are together. And she is singing the song.
The song, yeah. What does it say about me that I am just convinced that he died in the fire too? Everybody's dead, and they met as farm spirits.
You know, it's like that's the happier version.
It is
Totally.
Yeah, exactly. You're being an optimist.
Right.
Pete. You're being
Yeah,
an
that's the
optimist.
optimistic version. Is only one person gets burned in the fire.
All right, let's transition to our final film, Darren Aronofsky's Mother, 2017. Darren Aronofsky. I often hate myself when watching Darren Aronofsky films. And so let us begin. A woman lives with her poet husband, who is significantly older than she is, in an isolated, creaky mansion that she is rebuilding after it had burned down. He's having some real trouble with his art. She is very supportive. And then the guests start arriving. And goodness, do the guests have their way with her life and her home in particular. The film begins as this strained domestic drama and spirals into a fever dream of, I'm going to say it right now, biblical proportions.
What?
A baby is born and devoured by the crowd. Worshippers and zealots riot. Executions occur in the living room. And Jennifer Lawrence is brutalized and burned and destroyed in a literal and, we'll say, symbolic blaze. This is a tough watch, this movie. So, axes to grind? Who went first? I think, does that put Tom first this time for axes? Ooh. Tom, do you have any axes for this movie?
Axes to grind. I am very willing and happy to be on record of saying whatever year this movie came out, and I am an Aronofsky
2017. Fan. Okay.
I thought it was my favorite movie of that year. And then immediately went back the next day like a real cartoon character and rewatched it again because I found it so transfixing and so exciting and so everything that film can offer, for better or for worse. I was enthralled. I desperately love this movie. Let's go. And I know for so many conversations, I am in the minority. So I know that. I'm not coming.
This is your favorite movie. This is the best movie of 2017. You're saying
it was my most favorite. I'm not saying it's the best.
Yeah, better than Despicable Me 3. Better than.
Well, I can never say it's the best movie. It was my favorite movie of that year.
Right. Better than The Fate of the Fury. I'm just looking at 2017 movies.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Okay, Kynan.
Yeah, I love this movie. I felt similarly to Tom. I think when I had seen it, I took my boyfriend to it, and he's not a film person. But he did stay for the whole thing. But afterwards, I turned to him and was like, "Wow, that was." And he said, "That is the worst effing movie I've ever seen in my life." Yeah, and this famously gets a rare cinema score of F. You know, the polling surveys they do there. So that's rare. That's rare enough that like ends up on like Wikipedia pages of like. There's like 2 of those a year or something where people like the average score is F. But I think it is a just dazzling film, and I was telling everyone Jennifer Lawrence should win an Oscar for her performance. It is so great. It is the best thing that she's done. The only problem I have with Mother is that afterwards, when you discuss it, people were like, "Oh, well, it's so obvious in its allegory." And I said, "Like what allegory?" And they're like, "All the Bible stuff." And I'm like, "Oh, I had not picked up on any of it. I was just living within this character and all this awful, terrible stuff happening to her. And then you go and read it after, read this stuff and like, oh, how stupid of me! Like everything is incredibly on the nose, but I'm so with her. Yeah.
No, but not how stupid of you. But Pete as the runner, like I love, because I was very much in the allegory of the stuff because I'm all a Bible Magoo. But the fact that it worked for him as a not Bible Magoo,
completely different.
I love that.
Yeah. All right, Kyle.
I'm just like, poor
I know,
mother.
right? She had a rough day. Kyle?
So, have any of you ever been in a situation where you're with someone who has done a lot of illicit substances, and you have not, and they have a great idea they want to tell you about, and you can't leave because that's what this felt like to me. Of like I've seen 2 Darren Aronofsky movies that. So I don't have a context of this. That he was like, no. Then the son is going to show up, and his brother, you know who they are, and I'm like, I get it. And so every time I was just like, because I also grew up religious too, so I'm like, okay, so the sink is going to be the flood. I'm like, oh, look at that, the sink is the flood. So every single time it was just like, yeah, okay,
hated it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I can't even say like there's movies we've watched on here that I've absolutely hated, and this one I was just like, yeah, okay, sure,
okay.
People gave it an F. Yeah, all right, that seems like a little harsh, but it was just the whole way through I was just like, yeah, oh yes, you're very clever. Oh yes, you're very clever. Yeah, like, oh, look what you did with the baby. I see, very clever. Like, what a good boy are you? Like, no, I never got. I thought basically, I feel like he sat down with Jennifer Lawrence and says, "Okay, I want you to do Confused." And she went, "Okay, what else?" And he's like, "That's it. Just show me every flavor of Confused. That's all you have to do." Cool.
Okay.
Cash that paycheck. But
all right.
it's like it wasn't even enough of this for me to be like, ugh, God, terrible. Oh, I hate it. It was just like, yeah, okay, sure, yeah, fine.
Fair enough.
In terms of axes, I'm really like black and white when it comes to Aronofsky. I loved Requiem for a Dream. Loved it. Seen it many times.
My favorite movie of that year.
Hated The Fountain with a white hot rage.
Yeah.
I loved The Wrestler and Black Swan. I loved them. I hated Noah so hard. I got to this movie and I expected to be black and white on it again, and really walking that line between, is this one of Aronofsky's pretentious movies or profound movies? Because that's kind of where we go. And I found myself right in the middle. I did not hate it with the White Hot Fury. I thought it was doing some really interesting things. The idea that it's not a dream. Let's just say, let's say, and take as table stakes that it is an actual allegory, right? Maybe it's an allegory of Mother Earth or the Muse or of every woman consumed by the demands of creation. And I think that all of that could work. And yes, the Cain and Abel story and the Adam and Eve story and all the biblical stuff happening, the way each beat was able to so successfully amp up from her standing in her lovely translucent nightshirt on the porch in that gorgeous house to the very bitter end as he is placing her heart back on its stand, and have me ride along without wondering, what am I doing here right now? Like, without being so distracted. I was so surprised by that. Like, I find this movie relentless and also kind of sublime. Is it my favorite movie of that year? Despicable Me 3 is a tough race, but is it kind of an exceptional movie that I don't mind having seen multiple times? Yeah, absolutely. There's no subtlety to this movie. It's not subtle at all. There is nothing whispered in this movie. Not at all. And yet I was kind of here for it. Now, why does it fit in this trilogy? Because it's not right. It's not about raising children. It's about being consumed by the role of mother as creation. Right. That's where I get out of it. Right. The central figure is not a nurturer. She is a sacrifice to the process. And I think that is profound, right? Her house, her body, her sanity, they are all torn apart by this man who claims to love her, but gives every bit of himself in his insatiable need for adoration by others. And her to exist in contrast to his existence is what makes this horrific for me. It's not about what mother might do. It's about what horror might be done to her. Look at me. I'm even Obamaing my hand as I talk to you.
Yeah, she is mother before she has a baby, before there's even talk of her getting pregnant. Like, that is what he sees her as, right? That is her job, is to come forth and be mother. And there's this ominousness even in the beginning where, there's sort of this sort of sheen or sort of filter over it, is like that they're a happy couple. But I don't think we're really meant to believe that, right? It's a lot of him being secretive and her being, and her always being left out of the room. And there's something more important going on right outside of her field of view. And even when she goes out, in this gorgeous house with this gorgeous vista, there's this feeling like she's never where she's supposed to be, according to him, right? Javier Bardem is a good looking man, but when I don't know, you kind of bring in Anton Chigurh, when you watch a movie like this, you kind of bring in a lot of his, really disasters of characters, and like, even no matter what, like you're with him, but you're owned by him, right? And she's constantly feeling that way.
Yeah. So I am absolutely down with that. Like, I think that you're right. He's a little bit Chigurh. It's hard for him to do anything that's not Chigurh for me anymore. Like, that was such a seminal role. I think that such an interesting thing. I read a review that I wrote down this line because I think it's really powerful, that the terror does not come from jump scares or gore, though there is some. It comes from recognition, watching a woman give everything and still be erased. And that, I thought, was a really kind of powerful statement for me about what her place in this movie represents. And the final button at the end of the movie where another woman wakes up, just another woman wakes up. And we recognize that this is the cycle of creation and trauma and destruction, I think is a really powerful way to look at the movie.
Right. That for her, everything is him. Right. And even if we don't have a lot of character here. I grant that to the people who don't like the film. Right. But if you were to ask this woman, like, what she thinks her life is, she wouldn't put it that way. She wouldn't be like, he decides what we do. He decided that we live here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. She might say like, oh, I love him because of his work and all of that. But there is nothing for her, right, except to create the child and then be disappeared at the end of it, right? So even after she's gone, she's mother, right? So she's mother before there's a child, she's mother after there's a child. There's nothing for her except to serve him and to give him what he needs for the moment.
Right. And the entire first act is performative agency on her part. She's taking a lot of control in that house. She's painting it. She's rebuilding it. She has a lot of authority in the house. And it looks like she is a strong, capable, independent woman. And she ultimately, we realized that was all part of the performance of of the cycle of creation and destruction. Apparently, it was written in 5 days. You might say it feels like that.
I'm sure, and with no chemical assistance, I'm sure.
Yeah, right. You might say, really? It felt like it was improv. Yeah, 5 days. The biblical illusions are what they are. Aronofsky has also said it is full of environmental allegory. Mother represents nature. The film is a climate change parable, and a story of humanity's destruction of its home.
That's what I heard going in. So I was expecting sort of much more of like the nature parable metaphor, as it was like, oh, you're doing the Bible. Okay.
Okay. Well,
yeah, but to think about, but to think about, Mother is the creator of home and all of that, and, Mother Earth and all of those, like, I think this is one of the great houses in horror, maybe in all of cinema, because to simplify, it's like the TARDIS. It's bigger on the inside, right? Like you spend so much time trying to track around with her because you just see her going through, as you're talking about the early part of the film, just trying to renovate things, to fix things, etc. And you can't really get a handle on what the geography is. So like watching it again, I was trying to think of it more like does it really make sense? And no, of course it doesn't make sense. The drip of the blood from the first floor getting into the radiator at the bottom that we are sort of led to believe causes the destruction. Like none of that actually makes sense. And we go to the outside and we see her like on the porch and going around, but then later on we see her in the kitchen looking at the front door, which doesn't make sense if it's a circular house, like all that stuff that's just maddening. But the thing about one of the things I like about Jennifer Lawrence's performance so much is I hear what Kyle's saying, that she's playing confused and all of that, but I see a person who's trying to pretend that she does understand this world, and she finds this new place. She's like, okay, yeah, this has been here the whole time, no worries about this. Like, okay, this is it. Like there's a place where we have room for an army and room for a publicist and all that. Great, it's fine. And then of course it's not fine. She's right under all of that is her being told that the house is hers because she's Mother, but then not really having control of any of it anyways.
So there's a line in Ragtime, the musical, that says the house on the hill was Mother's domain. And looking at that, all three of these movies, Mama is home. And so all of them have very distinctive geographic things going on with the houses. So you have, like, I thought Run was very good about showing us everything about the stairs and the wheelchair and like how they had everything set up. And then you have on the other end, Mother, which is like the world is contained within this house. Nothing makes sense, but everything is always there. You can always see the walls, see the ceiling, see the floor. And then with Goodnight Mommy, then they're trapped in the same house, but you also get a sense of that house and how it's built and the sliding and the doors and locking doors. It's a big thing. So yeah, having it be that moms in their houses like that is definitely something that connects these three together.
Oh, and in the Goodnight Mommy house, it's very Austrian. I've never been to Austria, but all the movies look very cold and terrible. And very sheltered, very square. Yeah, but this version of it is like a museum to Mommy, and she has pictures of herself there, but they're all out of focus. You can never see her face, right? Like she doesn't want them to have a fixed idea of who she is, maybe, and that causes them to not have a fixed idea of her, or to hang on to their fixed idea rather, where they're like, no, you can't change. Don't change, Mommy.
One interesting thing in terms of just, again, the horror mechanic that strikes me in my notes, I wrote the same thing for all three movies, that the sound mix is really intense, and they're all very score light, right? There's a lot of just diegetic stuff going on, thuds and locks and screams and groans and grunts and zealots chanting on the front porch. I think that actually, the sound as assault, I think works really well for me. That that it all of these movies give us a sense of presence in the homes that is unique to this style of film and filmmaking. And I thought that's a fun twist.
Yeah, I think somewhat famously, Mother had a score that was written for it by Johan Johansson, but then they decided not to use it. But it was like wall-to-wall music, I believe. And then they decided not to use it. And then, of course, Johan Johansson passes away so young, and it's like so somewhat legendary, like this legendary like lost score to Mother that's somewhere in the vault.
Well, I think if we've learned anything, it's that motherhood isn't just hard, it's cosmically doomed. And so I have really enjoyed watching these movies, and I am fascinated by the catalog of movies in this genre that is just sort of coming to light as a result of researching movies on this on these things. I thank you very much for putting up with them. And I think we could say there's some good filmmaking going on in all three of them,
absolutely.
whether or not we like the stories.
Yeah.
So.
This is another episode where people are going to wonder, why is Kyle on this show? And for that, I got no answer for you.
Jeez.
Well, that does put us in a position of needing to hear what happens next.
Well, yes. So that is my time to shine, I suppose. So I did double check right before we started recording, like, wait, do I have this right? We're doing this in June. This is the June pick, right? Because I would like to do some movies for Pride Month. It's going to be a look at gay horror, specifically what's called coded queer cinema or queer coded cinema. So these would be movies that it's totally possible for a normie out in the audience to watch and not see any of the gayness that is there, either intentionally or made by the audiences. That's Tommy waving.
No, I wanted to make a guess. A guess.
Right.
Will not be Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2.
Ding, 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 ding. We'll be doing Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge, which some people have called the gayest horror movie of all time. And that is from 1985 by Jack Holder, who is not gay. And, there's also a fascinating documentary about that film called Scream, You Queen, that is about them perhaps inadvertently, or perhaps like just this magical mixture that went into production that ended up with a movie that was gayer than anybody had intended, apparently, and that people celebrate. So, but we'll also go way, way back to near the beginning of horror and watch a movie that is by a gay filmmaker named James Whale, and that would be The Bride of Frankenstein. Yes. So James Whale directed regular old Frankenstein in 1931, and then didn't really want to do The Bride of Frankenstein. He did it. This is a very gay story. He did it so that they would let him direct Showboat, the musical. So he said, if you let me direct a musical, Showboat, I will go back and do a sequel and slum
one
it.
For them and one for you.
One for them and one for you.
Yep. Exactly. So by all accounts, he did whatever he wanted to, and Bride of Frankenstein is a lot gayer if you know what you're looking for. So then we'll jump to pretty much present day, where now you don't have to necessarily do coded queer horror. You can do whatever you want nowadays, right? But we will be looking at Julia Ducournau's Titan, the Palme d'Or winner, which is a queer allegory, again, if you know what you're looking for. So we'll take a look at those three movies for LGBT Pride Month.
What a terrific
choice.
Yes. Yay.
Kynan. Well done. This is really fun. Letterboxd links will be coming. Thank you, everybody, and thank you to your mothers for putting up with these movies being made about their jobs, because oh my God, this is the real horror. And thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening. We appreciate your time and your attention. On behalf of all of us, to all of you, we will see you next month sitting in the dark.